So Sriram, thank you so much for joining us in the Fire Up series. This is a series of video interviews that we are doing with the startup founders on various topics of topical interest, some directly relating to the lockdown and some kind of in other aspects about how startups could learn from each other. So every day we're having a topic and we're just listening to different founders on various topics. And today we're going to be discussing frugal innovation. I mean, how can we create deep technologies, cutting-edge technologies as minimally and frugally as possible. So before we get started, Sriram, so why don't we just quickly want to talk about what is DaveAi and how did it come about?
All right. So thanks for having me, Ramesh. Pleasure to be part of the series. So DaveAi is an artificial intelligence platform. We predominantly work with brands, helping them create intelligent digital experiences, as we call. So the brands that we work with are brands that today sell offline predominantly. So this, you could think about a retail store, you could think about a bank, or even a manufacturer who relies on their physical channel for most of their sales and marketing. We try and help them both augment what happens physically and also create virtual experience because the traditional e-commerce generally doesn't work for these sort of brands that we're talking about. So we try and create virtual experiences for them. So we look at multiple aspects on how we can understand who their customers are and use that information in real time to personalize what the brands showcase to customers. So that's what we work with predominantly. And a classic example is a physical retail store. And if you want to look at how these stores can drive in-store personalization and also create a virtual experience that is different from e-commerce, but think about it as a virtual store that can now create whatever is happening physically in a virtual world. So this can be a pop-up store, this can be in the web, but powered with various aspects of intelligence through the journey. So that's what we're trying.
What are some of the, cutting-edge technologies that you're using in your solutions?
Yeah, so we look at 4 pieces of tech that comes together or blends together to create this. Dave is a virtual avatar, virtual sales avatar, as we call it. So one is facial detection, that is GDPR compliant facial detection. How can we look at who the customers are who's walking into a physical store or a physical branch without invading privacy, aligning to both GDPR and PDP norms that's coming into India currently. That's one aspect. The second one is speech and NLP. The avatar today can speak to customers and can converse both on chat as well as voice. That's 2. The third one is photorealistic rendering that happens in real time. So let's look at products like home furnishing, right? These wood coatings behind in a cupboard or paints or even a car for that matter is a visual experience, right? So you cannot show a thumbnail and sell it to a customer. So how do you create real-time renderings of these products in the virtual world? And all this comes together into a recommender system that uses all these cues and recommends the best product or the feature or a conversation point that helps a personalized interaction. So what we're actually trying to mimic is a physical world. So a physical salesperson as a physical storefront, all coming together in a virtual scenario. So that's what we're trying to bring in.
So, so how did you see something like this, especially involving AI? Did the problem come first, or did technology come first? In your case, did you discover the problem and then figure out how to do it, or was the other way around? You had some good insight into some technology and then looked around for problems that's worth solving.
Right. So, when we started off, I come from the sales background, and Anand, who's the other co-founder, is an AI. He has a PhD in machine learning, AI, speech, etc. So when we came together, these were 2 areas that we understood well, right? And Ashok, the third co-founder, comes from a retail background. So we looked at what do we understand well, and then we went and spoke to enterprises. So we started with a very small cue that today's sales experience is more relied on, in the physical world, is more relied on the salesperson himself or herself, right? How can we now use data and to leverage this or to augment this experience? That's how we started. That was a starting point. Because of course Anand was an AI practitioner, we went that route, right? But the current problem that we're solving is exactly we started building the tech layers to understand what enterprise data is, what data an enterprise has, and how do we use this data to solve the problem. But overall, it has evolved based on the business problems of customers. So we would say, to to put up a quick answer, we started with a technology approach, but then adapted that based on how business problems started coming into us. So we found the right business problem for the technology we built. So I think that's the best uh, way to look at how our evolution has been.
So kind of both were there at some level. You had a sense of technology, but you also had a sense of domain when you started.
Correct.
And then look some convergence within that.
Correct. And one thing that we consciously took out is we did not go and create point technology solutions for a business problem, like, because today if you go to customers, everybody has tons of business problems and they want us to solve everything, right? So what we do is we always try and have a roadmap for what we want to do. Of course, that's 70% of our technology roadmap is based on what we understand about where we want to go, and based on our team's understanding of the problem, etc. But always we try and stay on the ground with customers. So 30% of this gets built up from customer inputs. And again, we try and be very cautious about what inputs we take from customers. While that's the most relevant input, it can also take you in like varied directions. So we try and we've learned to say no to a lot of things that customers ask for, or at least try and counsel them as to maybe this is the right approach to solve it. And if both these things come together, then we try and go ahead and add that to the product roadmap and start building it. So that's how it is.
So how like the elephant in the room, how is the current COVID situation and the lockdown affecting you in any way? I mean, partly hurting for sure, but also maybe hopefully some opportunities coming up as well. So let's look at the hurting part first. I mean, how is it affecting you adversely?
See, to be honest, it started hurting us directly, but we've also already started seeing some cash flow issues that might start coming in from current payments that we're expecting. So when I say cash flow, there are payments that were due last month that are due this month.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will have to assume where it stands now that it's
yeah.
not delayed.
If it is only cash flows, I think it's a good problem to have. I mean, like, it is a problem, but it's a good problem to have if it's only cash flows.
Correct, absolutely. So, because the reason I said is that is the only problem that we are seeing.
Very good.
Because we create digital experiences, in some way we think this will be a blessing in disguise, for us. And you have to see the positive sides as an entrepreneur.
No two ways around it. Yes.
So we've seen, like, we work with some brands. One is a leading hypermarket chain, right? So they are today looking at a scenario which is unprecedented, right? So they have to control who walks into the store, how much time they're spending inside the store. So we are taking some aspects of what we already have and helping them achieve this. So we have a store scheduler today, where you can actually chat with Dave and schedule a store appointment. And we have a store validator that the security guard at the store can use, so that they clearly know who is inside the store. They collect information in real time, and this happens over a simple conversation, over a chat with a customer.
And this you already built.
Yeah. So because we had the framework, building a journey like this was very easy for us. But of course,
I think that is probably the new way of. It's going to continue for some months at least. There will be some kind of restrictions in terms of who can visit a store, how many can go into a store.
Absolutely. So we rolled that out. That is going live this week. We are in the final stages of the operational aspects, right? Because it also has a physical store, so we need to align with the store ops, etc. So that's something that we've rolled out. We've been putting that together as a system, seeing what are the limitations that again it comes through and stuff like that. And we've gone ahead and rolled that out. We work a lot with in-store kiosks, and one of the norms or the hype over the last 2 years was on creating touch interactions, right? So you have in-store navigation kiosks in airports or stores. You have, we launched Dave 2.0, which was a speech-enabled sales avatar, so that in the store, even in a kiosk or in a public space, you can actually talk to the kiosk rather than just going and touching and having a one-way interaction in some sense. Make it a two-way interaction. There we are now seeing this traction to convert touchscreen to touch-free interaction points. So because touch, that's
suddenly it's become taboo.
Yeah. So in one way now we are having interactions with our existing customers to upgrade these touch points into zero touch-free interaction points. So we have tried to look at where our technology can be relevant to these times, right? It is not the time to go and start saying, okay, now virtual conferencing is great, so now do we shut everything off and go and build that? Rather than that, we've looked at what strengths we have as a team. We understand the physical retail world very, very well. I think now, I can confidently say we understand that, as good as even a large system integrator, who might understand that space well. So we've sat with our customers. We said, okay, you're not open your store now with our lifestyle brands. What can we do for you? Right? This is the technology elements we have, and we have the ability to quickly, build some things if that is relevant to you. So we've done that exercise with all of our customers in the first week. And then we've picked up 2 or 3 points where we felt that this is more scalable and this might be relevant. And, in some cases, we've kept the commercial aspect out, right? Because, we are partners. The customer also has to look at us as partners. So we've said, let's solve this problem for you. And then let's see how this evolves commercially. And that's, appreciated by our customers. And because of that, the trust also has sort of increased between us. And then I hope that will, give us returns in the long term. So, as a product company, trying to keep that product aspect at its core, but also being flexible to understand what our customers are going through today and adapt along with them is something that we are also learning, of course, but I think, it's an interesting.
It makes a lot of sense. I think at this point, speed is the key. Getting something out quickly is the most important.
Absolutely.
The commercial things can definitely follow later. Now, how would you, talking about future proofing, see, at some level, we are facing a situation where there are opportunities which somebody can tap into only if somebody was future ready. Right? You could not have expected something like this to happen, say, 3 months back or 6 months back.
Right.
So, what were the elements that kind of are helping you to tap into such opportunities? Elements in your, because if you go too narrow, try to build technology that's just solving one problem, like you mentioned some time back, you don't want to build technology to solve just one problem. At the same time, you broaden it too much, then you're probably like nothing to anybody. Nothing specific to anybody. You're just lot to somebody, but probably nothing specific to anybody. So where do you draw the line? How do you make sure like you have enough of generic stuff into it so you can tap into more opportunity? At the same time, you balance it with some near term. What was the process that you went through? The opportunities are very clear to understand because the customers ask for something.
Right.
How do you kind of from that broaden it a little bit to keep you prepared for other opportunities?
So this is a learning that we've taken from our first year of the startup journey, right? So we took a conscious call that this will be a platform, right? So we don't want to be what's our strength, right? As founders, what is our strength? What do we understand? It all evolves from that, I think, for a startup. And we felt that we don't have the skill set to create a point solution and blitz scale, right? That was not something that we knew doing. Of course, scale is very important, etc. So we said, let's build a solid foundation for this business, which is the technology layer, and build that, being very close to our customers, or at least the profile of customers that we want to work together with. And then we started looking at product routes, right? So the first year and a half of us went into building a solid platform that can scale, like these pieces of technology we started putting together, and then looked at a problem statement that we can solve, which is, let's say, building a virtual, for a large brand, let's say building a pop-up store. Right? So we looked at whatever aspects is it and built a product, right? A productized version with 1, 2, 3, 4 features, and then we rolled it out. So in this current scenario, we've looked at it the same way. We've said these are our technology layers that a platform has, and because we are a platform, we were able to achieve that a bit more better, I believe, or we're well poised to tap into this sort of a stage. And then we looked at what are the opportunities currently, and even within these opportunities, is it an opportunity that is specific? It is a tactical problem that this retailer is trying to solve, or if we move in that direction, is there a larger space that we can tap into? Let's say a store scheduler bot, a very simple thing, right? But that's an opportunity for us to look into a space where today we don't have chatbot driven deployments because we consciously stood away from that direction. But now, because web is going to be big and because these interactions are going to be big, that's a direction that kind of opens up and different from the existing chatbots, right? Because we are avatar driven, we are personalized. It's all about the product and the discovery experience. And creating that chat interface is something that adds to the product itself. So that's the way that we have looked at how building point solutions and also being future proof is to say that, okay, is this solving this problem today, and what is the breadth of or the depth of this technology in terms of use cases that it can scale to. So we do that. Sometimes we go wrong, sometimes we are right, but we try and use everything. So we have a good bouncing board, like Triple IT Avishkar is a program that we're part of. We have a very sound advisory team from there. Apart from that, we have a couple of other advisors. We have enterprises who are alpha customers to us. We've been working with them for 2 years, large enterprises. So we use all of these, resources that are available to us, and try and take the best decision that we feel at that point of time is good for the product and for us. So that's how we go about it.
So how do you, again, one other aspect of, I think it's always a trade-off between doing something just what one customer wants, with investing a little bit more and doing it in a way that it can solve other problems, right? So now investing more is where the challenge comes. If there were 5 customers in 5 related areas, all of them committed, then you don't have any problem investing more in it because it is justified.
Sure.
It's only when you're speculatively investing is where you have a problem that you have to balance. So one way to do it is to see how frugally can you develop the technology or the additional work that you need to do. So are there any creative models that you've leveraged that goes beyond your team in helping build some of these subsystems or technologies?
Yeah. So I would say how do we look at it in terms of frugality, right? If that's the specific point that we'd like to address. So we look at, before we invest in building the entire depth of that whole solution, we look at, while we have the platform and we can go and build an end-to-end solution for this, we try and create what aspects are relevant for, let's take a use case where there is some bit of customer interaction that is required, right? Let's take that scenario. There is a scalable solution and there is a solution that you require to quickly test and see if it's working, right? So we try and put out that first bit, which is probably 20% only of that particular product. So we bounce it off the customer, we go and deploy it in a limited environment and see how customers are responding to it, rather than building everything and then going out. So a proof of concept sort of a scenario, from a product development journey as well, but not really proof of concept, because we're not validating the concept. We've already validated that. But what we are validating is the deployment, right? So the deployment, once we do it that way, then we get very, very important cues to say, this is the journey that you should take. And that has helped us, in building solid products, solid user journeys for our products with customers, etc. And I think it is, there is no single, thumb rule to do this, right? There's no by the book way of doing it. And I believe that, each of us have to understand our own, journeys, strengths as teams, etc., and do this. And going beyond our team, we've also developed a strong partner ecosystem, right? So if there is something specific that has to be done for a customer, and because we are a platform, we have players who have strength in content development, we have players who have strength in hardware, and so on and so forth. So we try and tap into all these resources. So at the end of the day, you are not investing too much of your resource alone into this initiative, but you're also creating.
That's a key mantra, to have some kind of a co-creation network.
Absolutely.
Partner network that are good at different things, that they could work with you to create different parts. And that's one way to optimize resources.
Absolutely. And we've been always, I believe one of the strengths that we have as a team is this whole partner network. And of course, the platform adds into them as well, right? So we've been able to find partners who are, let's say there is a company who's a content creation company based out of Hyderabad, and they look at the strengths of us as platform and their strength is content creation. So we've been able to create the seamless partnership, and even with large teams like Intel, where we work with them to see how we can optimize our platform for their tech, and the use cases that we're working on is very interesting for them. It's a longer journey with larger companies, but we've stuck with pursuing that for a long time, and now we're seeing some results. So we have some good partnerships with some system integrators, hardware makers like Intel, and so we've been able to somehow bring this together, depending on the need.
So just as a tip for other startups to learn from your experiences, what are the types of partners? Because that's the key, I think, here, right? I mean, with a very small team, very resource kind of constrained team, if you have to do, leveraging the partners, like you said, are the key. So you had a strong content play, so you got a good content developer. I mean, content company that's part of it. You said there were some hardware startups. What are the other kind of partners you had?
So threefold for us, actually. So one is we looked at what is it that we want to invest in and what is the strength that we have, right? Because, so I'll take my journey and probably people can relate to what their startups have. So we said we are an AI company, right? But AI is nothing, right? So it's a technology tool. Today, if I tell a retail brand that I'm using AI to improve your sales, and there's another company who says, I don't use AI, but I can improve your sales 10% better than anybody else. The brand is going to go and buy something else. Right? They're not buying into AI, right? So we need to understand that. So technology or AI, the aspect of the technology is only to provide us the advantage of solving that problem better. Right? If instead of AI, I can solve this problem better using some other technology, so be it. We did that because we had strength in that domain. Right? My co-founder has a doctorate in that space, so he knows what he's doing with that product, and we believe each other that way. So as a team, so we put our bet there, right, in that technology aspect. And then we said, when we started building these experiences for retailers, we said we are working with lifestyle retailers. Right? These are furnishings, home lifestyle, automobile. So there is a content grandeur that has to come in. Right? You cannot just come and say, I'm an AI, I'll make a recommendation. Unless this recommendation is backed by good creative content, there is no impact with the customer.
Yes.
And then we decided, should we build this? Neither I am a creative person, nor Anant is creative, nor Ashok is creative. We all have strengths at the end of the day. We might be creative, we can come up with a few, we can say this is good or bad, but can I build something that is good? So we had a choice to add another core team member in that domain, or leverage somebody who's already invested so many years in building strength. Right? So we tried both approaches. We looked at this, and then we found somebody who is really strong, and they were looking for a platform, to kind of align with. So it's important that your partner also has the need from you. It can never be one way, right? And that's why and one advice will be to go and look at companies at your scale. You always tend to be flattened by big names, big brands, because it looks good, investors like it, it looks good on your deck, etc. But what works on the ground is partners of your size, right?
So the most motivated.
Absolutely. And they have some need from you, you have some need from them. They're also frugal like you, and it creates a good mix, right? But of course, it is important to keep this mix. So now from the content side, we did that, right? We did not go and align with a large brand agency. We went and aligned with another startup, right? So they got strengths for their own customers. They leveraged us. For our customers, we leveraged them. It was a win-win, and it worked really well. It is continuing to work well. Right? And the second partnership that we had is hardware. So most of our solutions are deployed on hardware, at least inside the store. So right from day one, we decided that we have the hardware know-how in terms of DevOps and how our solution is deployed, but we don't want to get into building hardware. Right? So we looked at who is the best in the market. Because for hardware, if I go and align with another startup who is also trying to reinvent the wheel or deploying new, my end customers wouldn't be happy. Right?
Yes.
So there we took a conscious call that we will do it with established brands. So it took time. Until then, we told the customer, you can buy whatever hardware you want. I'll try and work around it. Right? This is the overall broad spec. You buy it. But over a year and a half, it took us to build some of the strong partnerships with, say, Intel, with Samsung, with NEC. And now we have a broad framework of partners. But there we understood that this is going to take time, and it's not it cannot be done in a day. We did not lose patience. We stuck with them. We understood that this is a large company which has its own limitations. They have processes, so we stuck with it. We leveraged some of the corporate accelerator programs there, right? We consciously applied to some of them with clear needs, and that has worked for us. So the third bit is system integrators, because system integrators give us also again two things. One is access to customers, and also services aspects that come with large deployments. They take. So even there, it was a long journey, but we've still not succeeded, if I be honest, completely there. We have one partner, solid partner now, but we continue to build in that direction. So that way, you look at your strength and what complementary skill sets and who's the right partner, what size. I think that decision you have to make right from day one and have a conscious outlook of how long will this take to put that partnership in place. I think that's.
It makes a lot of sense. So, Sriram, thanks so much. I think that was a good peek into how you're managing the technology innovation frugally. So I hope it helps other startups as well that are still the same stage as you are. And we'll talk later. I mean, some of the things that you mentioned, there are some threads on, so we'll be happy to help, especially Intel and such. So we'll connect up later. And Sriram, thanks so much. Stay home, stay safe. And I've already seen few things in the last 10 days coming out of DaveAi, and keep doing more. I think that's the opportunity we all have. Just keep doing more, and all the best.
Thanks, Ramesh. A pleasure.
Thank you, Sriram. Thanks so much.